obviously, I've been following some of the stuff about Graham Platner. We'll have some stuff to say about that in a couple of minutes. But this is a clip, there is every reason for people to be suspicious of candidates when we first introduced them, when we first introduced them. Every reason. Folks got burned on Fetterman. There were indications that there might be an issue. I'm also not convinced that his physical health issues didn't really implicate this stuff. Because, I mean, you have a whole staff. The turnover in Fetterman's staff has been like almost total. I think it's 100%. And they've all, basically left because it was a completely different sort of ball game than they had thought too. So it wasn't, and that's a weird thing.
He took AIPAC money, for example. I mean, Fetterman was openly courting the Israel lobby, and we were in different circumstances where that was a little bit more like, okay, this is what he has to do. Maybe he supports Medicare for all. And turns out, no, it just
Mills would also
everything about him.
Mills would also be better than Collins, right? Like, even though, like it was Oz versus Fetterman, still, I guess, probably take that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's an argument. There's an argument. I mean, look, frankly, if the Democrats had 49 senators and Fetterman was the 50th and allowed them to stop judicial appointments or, a whole host of things, then yes, of course. I mean, a vote is a vote. Even, Manchin and Sinema, although they, can ultimately become more problematic. But the broader picture is, it is worth being nervous about any candidate that comes on and doing your best to vet them. And this, and I haven't followed the Michigan primary race too carefully. I can't remember her name. What's her name?
Haley Stevens. So there's one of the Schumer. You have Janet Mills in Maine, and Schumer, who Schumer is getting behind, and then you have their other pick, Schumer and Gillibrand, Haley Stevens, who is like was openly courting AIPAC money, going over the top about it, right? So talk about Fetterman vibes. This was like more of what that looks like, but it's becoming so politically toxic that the Democratic Party's concerned that Abdul Sayed might end up winning this primary, and so it feels like the turn now is to Mallory McMorrow.
Yes, and I have to say, like, if I was a Michigan voter, I would be voting for Abdul El Sayed, and he's just a better candidate, it seems to me, in terms of like his policy sets. This segment from Mallory McMorrow, I just happened to catch, and I find it so telling. I mean, if you want to talk about red flags. And everything is, and when you're making these assessments, everything is a piece of evidence that might suggest that a candidate is going to do bad things in office, right? I mean, that's basically what you're tasked with. Platner has a tattoo. It's one piece of evidence that he has, could be one piece of evidence that he has Nazi beliefs. There's a whole raft of other evidence that he does not have Nazi beliefs.
Like his private Reddit posts for 15 years being anti-fascist might be a little bit of an indication for folks.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, look, Pete Hegseth, the issue with Pete Hegseth is not just that he has a particular tattoo. The issue with Pete Hegseth is that he has a long-time association with the people represented by the tattoo. Yes. And he, so it's one piece of evidence that you want to see backed up with sort of real life things. I bring that up because I want to contrast that with when a candidate tells you that they're not for a policy, you should listen. And when they don't really tell you why, you should also listen. Here is Michigan Senate candidate Mallory McMorrow explaining, and it's one of the worst explanations I've ever heard for someone not supporting Medicare for all. It is, and then she doesn't physically run away from the question. She literally turns into a road comic to get away from just watch this.
Hey, that's insulting.
With all due respect, Brian.
Road comics.
Hate speech.
What's your stand on Medicare for all?
Great question. I support, unabashedly, universal health care. Everybody should have access to health care. And I want to tell you why I said it that way. So first of all, I shared my own story that I graduated right into the recession. I did not have any health insurance. I couldn't even stay on my parents' plan until I was 26. And for millennials and Gen Z especially, we do not have the job security that our parents had. In my first campaign, my opponent knocked me, sent out mailers saying, she hasn't had a job longer than 2 years. I was like, well, yeah, I'm a millennial. That's normal. That's just what we have to deal with. So the idea that for generations now who are going to change your job every couple of years, that your health insurance would be tied to your job is ludicrous. Also, by the way, it prevents small businesses from being able to compete with larger companies because offering comprehensive benefits and health insurance plans and childcare and paid leave is so prohibitively expensive that we have this situation where the larger companies get bigger and they can offer more and they can get the best talent, and small businesses, which make up 90% of Michigan's economy, can't. Now, I said it the way that I said it because some people conflate Medicare for all with universal health care. But Medicare for all, when it's actually defined, is one singular government-run healthcare system that we are all on. Now, I want you to imagine what that would look like.
Okay, pause it for 1 second,
Trump
and then I just
RFK
want you to go
Jr.
back. Pause it for 1 second. It is not, first of all, Medicare for all is not one government-run healthcare system. It is one government-run healthcare payment system. In the same way that Medicare for people over the age of 65 is not government-run healthcare, it is government-run healthcare insurance. Okay, so she's like already starting to conflate things, and I want you to just go back because I want you to hear where she turns to this. Remember, we have Social Security, we have Medicare. That take care, that are the closest things that we have to some type of universal programs. And it's universal in the sense that everybody is eligible once they get into retirement age. But it's not eligible, but everybody is not eligible. So we have, and it is, I don't know, we have 45 million plus, we have half the country almost on Medicare or Medicaid. And Social Security, I'm not sure how many Americans, maybe a third, a little bit more, are on Social Security. This is important to note where she comes up with the critique of government-run health insurance. Go ahead.
But would you want Donald Trump?
Well, here's let her say it.
Okay, all right.
This is what she literally says.
But Medicare for all, when it's actually defined, is one singular government-run healthcare system that we are all on. Now, I want you to imagine what that would look like with Donald Trump and RFK Jr. at the head of it. You have this man who just last week held a conference saying that anybody who has been circumcised probably has autism because they probably took Tylenol. This is a man who decapitated a whale. and dropped a dead bear off in Central Park, who works out. I don't know if you've seen this, and I know it's the pettiest thing to complain about RFK Jr. about. He works out in jeans. There has to be so much chafing. I don't trust that man to make medical decisions for my family.
She put this video out. This was her campaign. This video that we linked to, she thought this made her look good. And I remember what I just wanted to say earlier before we moved past it, was when she's doing this parsing of universal health care with Medicare for all and trying to make it as so that those are separate things. It reminds me of what Gavin Newsom did in a recent interview. I forget if it was the higher learning one or a different one, but he talks about championing universal health care. And just make a note of that. Put a pin in that, folks, because that has the ability to mean a variety of different things, as she just demonstrated there, and also creates this false premise that Medicare for all wouldn't be the best vehicle for universal health care.
And I will even take it further than this. Not only is she her critique of Medicare for all complete bullshit, because we have chafed jeans and Donald Trump in charge of Social Security and Medicare right now. I mean, so that's a problem. But imagine how much harder it would be for Donald Trump and Bobby Kennedy to undermine a health insurance program that everybody relied on. Politically speaking, it would make them completely vulnerable if they did that. And the idea that Donald Trump and Bobby Kennedy can't influence private corporations in this country is absurd. We have seen them do exactly that over and over again. And then I would also argue, beyond the idea of what of explicitly what she's saying, she is undermining the idea of any type of universal programs by our government. What she's talking about is an anti-government disposition. She has an anti-government disposition, because if the argument is, do you want public goods in the hands of bad people, and with that, therefore what? Therefore, we should give them to individuals who run insurance companies?
You know, the like saints over there. The beautiful, Nobel Peace. Well, that's not even correct, but the saints over at the health insurance industry.
This was made by the folks, the Jimmy Dore type folks who were doing the March for Medicare for All. Some of the libertarians that spoke out. They started doing the anti-vax pivot and said we can't trust the government that would have forced vaccinations to do Medicare for all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is far more telling than a tattoo without any other substantiation is. So, people want to be looking for things to be suspicious about. And I can understand that. You need to also listen to what the politicians are saying, because, what she said, she was from universal healthcare. Well, that would basically be an expansion of Obamacare.
Yep.
I mean, where the government is paying subsidies to these insurance companies with absolutely no reason to be doing it.
Right. And also, if we return to the Medicaid or the Medicare and Social Security piece, this is why you would want to make sure that Medicare for all is in mandatory spending and not discretionary. And you could solve that statutorily to insulate it from the politicians, like right-wing politicians, getting a hold of it. It's part of what's given the durability to those programs for so long, even though the Republicans are cutting into it in other roundabout ways.
Yes, and Donald Trump, had to at least express fealty to the idea of not cutting Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Now, they're going around doing it, and they're hiding the fact that they're doing it, right? In the big billionaire bill, by claiming they're just going after immigrants and lazy guys sitting on their couch. by cutting Social Security and Medicare. But the fact of the matter is that if it was Medicare for all, it would make it much harder for them to lie about it, right? Because then everybody would get health insurance, and they wouldn't be able to tell the lie about a 28-year-old faking not having any work to get Medicaid, because everybody would be getting it. Yep. They wouldn't be able to by having a single payer system, aside from it being far more efficient, far more cost efficient, far more efficient in terms of an experience, far more efficient in terms of providing broad-based health as measured by the health of all Americans, not just the wealthy Americans. It is just a much more efficient system, but it's also much more politically durable than any other program that she would say needs to be protected from, chafed thighs and Donald Trump. And so this is the type of stuff.
Yeah.
This is the type of stuff you should be looking for when you're looking for clues as to what kind of senator this is going to be. And again, I understand why people are upset about Platner's tattoo, but that is one piece of evidence. And if you find nothing else that corroborates the idea that this guy has, praises Nazis.
And in fact, you have a lot of ample evidence that there doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
And I think it's like perfectly legitimate to come to the conclusion of like, this is a guy who just wasn't terribly keyed into stuff. I mean, I don't know if he knew. I personally did not know that. But, I would have.
Maybe call me ignorant.
I'm also would not get a tattoo.
Yeah. Right.
Because I'm afraid of needles. Right. And so, I don't know. But in terms of like it being disqualifying as a function of his ideology, I think that's silly.
Bernie Sanders was very dismissive of it yesterday and saying we're talking about the tattoo here. You have Martin Heinrich, who is a Democrat under the age of 60, who wants a future in the party and definitely, I think, is interested in Senate leadership, also backing up his support for Platner. Gallego declined to basically throw him under the bus. I think he wants to run for president. He had said he deserves a second chance. And we now have the images this morning showing that he has gotten it covered up. So I think there has to be an opportunity for people to grow and change. And there's nothing in that leaked. The Reddit history, apparently, he's Antifa, is what the news story was 72 hours ago. And now he's now he's a fascist based on this tattoo alone, apparently. I can't keep up like what is wrong apparently with Graham Platner, but I do know what his policy platform is. And I do know what he was saying in private with those Reddit posts that is much more in keeping with what he's been promoting recently. So with his policy platform, and he's not taking AIPAC money. He's getting small dollar contributions. And that is the kind of thing that we should be, not being so reactive to, especially because just one more thing on it. Like I'm seeing people sharing this Jewish Insider article where they have one anonymous source that said that he referred to the tattoo as I can never say this word,
Totenkopf.
Totenkopf. It's one anonymous person who doesn't give their name, and Jewish Insider is a right-wing Zionist paper. And why are people on the left sharing this as some sort of evidence we've got to get some media literacy on this.
It would be an incredible move for him to have 10, 12 years ago written all this anti-fascist stuff in Reddit chats that he did not want leaked, incidentally, did not want, to be public, written all this anti-fascist stuff then as a way, but also I'm going to keep the tattoo because that's where my heart really is.
It goes back even further than that, Sam. He would have to have planted the pro-Palestine stuff in his high school yearbook,
Right?
just to throw people off the scent.
But when you say that, they don't think
this
that's
is the way
contradictory.
I'm going. This is the way I'm going to
Throw him off the scent.
This is the way I'm going to throw him off the scent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to become an oyster farmer.
Right.
And that's the way I'm going to get into politics.
But the pro-Palestine stuff, they are using that as evidence that adds to them calling him a Nazi. And this is where I'm getting frustrated with the lack of discipline on the left about this. First of all, like, we have to be conscious about what veterans were going through in the aftermath of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. Like, I feel like so many of the people that are reacting to this kind of thing are either younger or weren't conscious during that time period. But like, we put our veterans through the ringer, and we don't have many social services to provide them when they get back here. I still remember Bernie Sanders' like passionate pleas when he chaired the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee and fighting with John McCain over funding veterans care. Like, this has been the rate of homelessness for veterans in this country is exorbitant and disproportionate, include LGBTQ people as well. Like, this is important to keep in mind, and allowing people to grow is really something that we need to internalize here.
Van Jackson had this on Twitter. I think it's basically said, I served many people I served with had tattoos I didn't know the meaning of, and what online pundits think isn't going to move the needle much on whether Mainers vote for him. So look, I think Graham had a huge amount of momentum, even maybe a lead going into the race when Mills first entered it.
He did.
That's not true anymore. Hopefully we can have a race and get to actual issues instead of, reading, getting deep into the signs and signifiers of the late Bush Iraq war era.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is, they got what they wanted out of this. And in terms of like the Oppo research.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.